All it was my idle mixture screws. And I owe it all to you guys, my viewers and my subs on this channel, to help me solve this problem that I should have been able to figure out, and it is that simple, and I feel silly for even missing it. So let me back up. My last video I just did, I installed a dash pot, I believe is what it's called, but it's a solenoid to push on the throttle just a little bit when you need it for. And what it was designed for by Holley is they did it for air conditioning systems. When those air compressor would come on, it would put a little bit more load on the motor, and people would need that to keep that motor from dying. I used it to solve the problem where when my alternator would kick on, because my fans are pretty hungry, when the alternator goes to work, it puts a lot of load on the engine. And because my carburetor wasn't set up right, I needed that dash pot to give me just a little bit more throttle to keep the engine from dying. The funny thing is that I did a video on setting up these idle mixture screws on this carburetor, and clearly it's not right, because I had this problem that was purely based on the idle mixture screw setting. So what was it? What it ended up being was, who it was Nick McMinn. He put a comment up about saying, maybe you're running a little too lean and you should back your idle mixture screws out 1/4 of a turn. When I saw that, I just thought, okay, it's probably that simple. It's probably something that simple, and I'm an idiot for missing something so minor. So I went out here, and before I fired up the car, I figured, you know what, one of the things so idle mixture screws, ideally in a perfect world, they're the same number of turns out. You know, what is it, like you start at like 1 1/4 turns or something like that out from the bottom, and you kind of go from there as you adjust in your idle mixture screws. You get your vacuum gauge, and you got the car warmed up, and you're trying to find the best lean idle condition, and you're adjusting those screws up and down to try to find that where that needle is as high as it can be for vacuum when you're setting on mixture screws. When you have a wild cam like I have, it's a much lower reading, and the needle bounces more, and it's a little harder to get, and you do your best to kind of dial it in. On my car, while I thought I had it dialed in good, and it seemed to be just fine, what it turns out is that the idle mixture screw on the driver's side was only 1 turn out, and the passenger side was 1 1/4 turns out. Now, that may be what it takes to get the best lean idle condition in a car, but it's common to have them the same amount of turns, or really, really close. 1/4 turn is quite a lot for these setups. So, got the car warmed up, and get the fans cycle on, and get that dash pot to do its thing to make sure everything's working right. And then when the fans turned off, I disconnected the power wire for that solenoid so it wouldn't activate, and I just did the driver's side 1/4 of a turn out. So now it was 1 1/4 turns out, which matched the passenger side. I don't know, a little bit later, you know, when the fans kick back on, the alternator kicks on, the engine didn't die. And I started laughing because I thought this is such a simple thing, and I spent that money and did all that work just to put that dash pot in there, and I don't need it. And I know that it's a Band-Aid, you know, to fix the problem I was having, but it wasn't the solution, right? So anyways, maybe that was just a fluke deal, so I let the fans turn off and wait a couple seconds or whatever until the fans kick on again, and the engine doesn't die. And it does exactly like we want it to. The engine kept idling, which is what it should be doing, and it should have been doing to begin with had I adjusted those idle mixture screws correctly to begin with. So I kind of tweaked them a little bit, and I found that I took them out not even 1/8 of a turn more on either side, and the RPMs were a little bit better. So, you know, with finding the idle dying by having that screw in too far is putting me in a lean condition, and ultimately what was causing the engine to die when the alternator kicks on and starts working harder. So simple solution. I feel silly for missing something like that. I do know that my carburetor, I mean, I still need to dial it in a little bit more, and I've got a tuner here in town that's going to help me with that, but I'm in line, right? I got to wait, you know, until I can get in there. He's busy. He's got a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to start from scratch and make sure everything's dialed in perfect. Start from the bottom, you know, worry about my accelerator lever here, the idle mixture screws, everything, you know, the choke, everything's going to be dialed in perfect, then work our way up through the jets and the power valve if that even needs to mess with. Just kind of work our way up through the carb and just make sure get everything happy to this setup, to this motor. And I really want somebody to help me with that, so I'm waiting to do that. I knew that this wasn't perfect, but I thought I had good enough to get me by. And when the engine was dying because that load from the alternator, I figured, well, I know this solution will work. Putting that dash pod in there will keep the engine running. And I've got a video coming out in a couple days where I had a problem with the squeaky belt for my alternator, and I mentioned that dash pod in there, and that video, I did that before now, so that's already done. So I'm going to reference something that I'm not even using anymore. So for you hardcore guys that watch all my videos, you'll see that and you're like, wait a minute, I thought you fixed it. I did. The video's already done and it was already uploaded. So it's coming out on Monday for those that are paying attention to the days that when they come stuff out. So anyways, I'm not going to need this dash pod anymore. I'm going to take it out. And last night I went for a drive, took the wife, went for a drive, and just every stoplight and stop sign, stuff like that, the engine would just continue to idle when the fans would kick on. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. I knew this dash pod wasn't the solution because I wasn't fixing the problem. It was just a Band-Aid until I figured I could get the carb dialed in, and that may be where I needed to be. And it was, because it was the idle mixture screws. But I know the carb still needs a little bit of work. So anyways, that was just a quick video, guys. Well, actually, this isn't really quick. This is kind of a longer video. I just wanted to give you guys, a shout out for all the help, all the comments. You guys, there's a lot of stuff that you say, try this, try that, and some things have worked out in the past and have made my car a little bit better. In this case, that little idle mixture screw helped me out, and I figured I need to make a video about it because I don't really say much about it in my other videos when you guys help me out, and it keeps me going, and I appreciate all the support. And so I'm trying to reciprocate that a little bit and give you guys back a little bit more than what I seem like I take all the time. Just take your guys' views, and I want to say a little more thanks. So I do appreciate it. But anyways, car's good, car's happy, and it's just so funny that it was such a silly one little screw. That's all it was, and a quarter of a turn of a screw ultimately is what the problem that I was having is. That simple. And I feel so silly that it was something that I missed like that. So anyways, thank you again, Nick McMahon, for suggesting that. And this is fantastic. So thank you again, guys, and we'll see you on Monday for my next video.